The research ship Eternal Seeker moved through space like a silver needle, threading through dark fabric. Its hull was marked with symbols from 12 different worlds, each representing a member of the Galactic Archaeological Consortium. Inside, dozens of beings from various species worked together with one shared purpose: to study the dead civilizations of ancient Deathworlds. Dr. Veltar pressed his forehands against the observation deck's transparent wall. His blue-scaled skin reflected the pale light of the nearby star. Through the window, he could see their destination growing larger. The third planet from this yellow star looked exactly like what they had come to expect from a Deathworld. "Scan results are complete, Doctor," called out his assistant Nixa. She was a thin, gray-skinned being from the outer rim. Her large black eyes never seemed to blink as she studied the data streams flowing across her screen. "The atmospheric readings match our predictions perfectly." Veltar nodded slowly. "Tell me what you found." "Dangerous levels of oxygen in the atmosphere, violent weather patterns across the surface, evidence of massive tectonic activity that should have destroyed any chance of complex life." Nixa's voice carried the excitement that all researchers felt when discovering a new site. "And the electromagnetic readings suggest they had some form of primitive technology before they went extinct." The doctor moved away from the window and walked to the central planning table. A three-dimensional image of the planet rotated slowly above the surface. Red marks showed areas where their long-range scanners had detected the remains of structures. Blue marks indicated where they might find preserved artifacts. "How many Deathworld civilizations does this make now?" asked Throck, the expedition's military advisor. The massive rock-like being served as their protection during dangerous excavations. "This will be our 47th, Veltar replied. "And based on our initial scans, this one follows the same pattern as all the others." The pattern was always the same. A hostile world would somehow produce intelligent life. That life would struggle against impossible odds, developing amazing technologies and showing incredible will to survive. They would create art, literature, and scientific wonders that impressed even the most advanced galactic civilizations. But in the end, the Deathworld would claim them. Sometimes it was environmental collapse. Sometimes it was war. Sometimes it was simply the planet itself turning against them. "What makes this one interesting?" asked Dr. Kesevar, their xenobiology expert. Her green tentacles moved across her datapad as she spoke. "The readings suggest they lasted much longer than most Deathworld species." Veltar had noticed this too. Most Deathworld civilizations lasted only a few thousand years before destroying themselves. The electromagnetic evidence from this world suggested they had maintained their technology for much longer. "Their cities were larger than usual," he said, pointing to one of the red marks on the hologram, "and they seem to have spread across most of the planet's surface. Most Deathworld species never make it past their home continent." The ship's captain, a tall being with silver skin and no visible eyes, spoke from the bridge communication system. "We will be in orbit within 6 hours. The landing team should prepare for descent." Veltar felt the familiar excitement building in his chest. Each new Deathworld taught them something different about how life could adapt to impossible conditions. The species they studied had all failed in the end, but their struggles and achievements helped the galaxy understand the true limits of biological development. "Doctor," Nixa said, her voice quieter now, "there's something else in the scans. The energy readings from some of these structures. They're very recent." "How recent?" "Within the last few hundred years. Maybe less." Veltar considered this information. It was not unusual for Deathworld technologies to continue functioning long after their creators had died. Some of the most amazing archaeological finds came from automated systems that had kept working for thousands of years after everyone was gone. "Automated systems," he said finally. "They probably built their machines to last. We've seen this before." Nixa nodded, but she still looked uncertain. "The patterns are just different this time." The doctor dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. "Every site is different. That's what makes this work so rewarding." As the ship moved closer to the planet, Veltar studied the surface through the enhanced viewers. The continents were marked with the geometric patterns that showed where cities had once stood. Rivers and oceans reflected the yellow sunlight. It was beautiful in the way that all Deathworlds were beautiful, and deadly. The planet's surface showed clear signs of the violence that had shaped it. Mountain ranges pushed up by massive geological forces, deep scars where asteroid impacts had nearly ended all life. polar ice caps that advanced and retreated in cycles that would have frozen most species to death. "Look at those atmospheric readings again," Dr. Kesevar said, her tentacles moving faster as she worked. "The oxygen content is so high it should be toxic to most life forms, and the gravity is almost twice what most species can handle. That's why they're all dead," Throck rumbled from his corner. "No one can live on a world like that for long." Veltar nodded. It was a sad truth they had learned from studying dozens of other Deathworlds. The same harsh conditions that forced rapid evolution and technological advancement also guaranteed that the species would eventually destroy itself or be destroyed. "Prepare the landing site," he ordered. "We'll set up our base camp near the largest city ruins. Standard archaeological protocol. We document everything before we touch anything." The research team began their preparations as the ship entered orbit. They had done this many times before, and everyone knew their role. The archaeologists would map the ruins and catalog artifacts. The xenobiologists would study any preserved remains. The technicians would analyze the dead machinery and try to understand how it had worked. "Doctor," the ship's captain announced, "we have achieved stable orbit. The planet's magnetic field is stronger than expected, but it won't interfere with our operations." Veltar looked out at the world below them one more time. Somewhere down there, an entire species had lived and died, leaving behind only ruins and artifacts for others to study. Their story would become part of the great catalog of Deathworld civilizations that the consortium maintained. "All teams, prepare for descent," he announced. "We have another lost world to explore." The landing shuttles were loaded with equipment and supplies for a long expedition. Veltar took one last look at his research notes as the team prepared to descend to the surface. According to their calculations, this species had called themselves humans, and they had managed to survive on their death world longer than most. Soon, the story of humanity would join the long list of species that had dared to challenge the universe and lost. The morning sun cast long shadows across the excavation site as Dr. Veltar examined their latest findings. 3 days had passed since the team had established their base camp in what their scanners identified as the ruins of a major human settlement. The work was going better than expected. "The preservation is remarkable," said Dr. Kesevar, carefully brushing dirt from what appeared to be a piece of human technology. "This device still has readable markings on it." Veltar nodded as he made notes on his datapad. The human artifacts were indeed well preserved, and many showed the clever engineering that was typical of Deathworld species. They had found tools, art objects, and fragments of larger machines that spoke to a surprisingly advanced civilization. "Their metalworking was exceptional," observed Nixa, holding up a corroded but still recognizable blade. "The alloy composition suggests they understood chemistry far better than we initially thought." The doctor was pleased with their progress. Each item they uncovered added another piece to the puzzle of how humans had lived on this hostile world. The atmospheric readings continued to show dangerous oxygen levels, and the gravity made movement difficult for most of the team members. Yet somehow humans had not only survived here, but had built cities and created art. Throck was setting up perimeter sensors when his deep voice called out across the dig site. "Doctor, we have movement." Everyone stopped working. Movement could mean anything from local wildlife to unstable ruins. On Deathworld excavations, it was always better to be cautious. "Where?" Veltar asked, moving toward the security officer. "Northern approach, approximately 2 kilometers out. Single individual moving toward our position." Dr. Kesevar's tentacles coiled nervously. "Could it be another archaeological team?" "No," Throck said, checking his readings again. "The life signs don't match any known galactic species. And it's not wearing environmental protection." This was puzzling. The atmosphere of this world would be toxic to most known life forms, and the radiation levels from the nearby star were higher than safe limits. Any visitor would need significant protection to survive on the surface. "Could it be some kind of automated probe?" Nixa suggested. "The readings show biological activity," Throck replied. "It's definitely alive." Veltar considered their options. First contact protocols required them to establish peaceful communication with any intelligent life they encountered, but everything they knew about this world suggested that its original inhabitants were long dead. "Maintain our positions," he decided. "Let it approach. Keep weapons ready but not visible. The team continued their work, but everyone kept glancing toward the northern horizon. After 30 minutes, Throck announced that the individual was now within visual range. "I can see it clearly now," he said, adjusting his observation equipment. "Bipedal, approximately 2 meters tall, wearing minimal protection. It appears to be human." "That's impossible," Dr. Kesevar said immediately. "Our scans showed no current life signs on this planet." "The individual is definitely human," Throck confirmed. "And it's heading directly for our camp." Veltar felt his heart beating faster. In all his years of Deathworld archaeology, he had never encountered a living member of the species he was studying. The implications were staggering. If humans had somehow survived on this world, it would revolutionize everything they thought they knew about Deathworld evolution. "Everyone remain calm," he ordered. "This could be the discovery of our careers." The figure approached their camp with confident, steady steps. As it came closer, the team could see that it was indeed human. A female specimen wearing simple clothing that provided minimal protection against the harsh environment. She seemed completely unaffected by the dangerous atmosphere that required the rest of the team to wear full environmental suits. She stopped at the edge of their excavation site and looked around with obvious curiosity. Her eyes took in the equipment, the artifacts, and the alien researchers with what appeared to be scientific interest rather than fear. "Hello," she said in clear Galactic Standard. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. I've been watching your work from a distance. You're archaeologists, aren't you?" The team stood in stunned silence. Veltar was the first to recover his composure. "Yes," he replied carefully. "We are Dr. Veltar of the Galactic Archaeological Consortium. We are here to study the remains of human civilization on this world." The human, Dr. Chen, smiled at this. "The remains? That's interesting. May I ask what led you to believe that human civilization had ended?" "Our long-range scans detected no signs of current intelligent life," Nixa said, still staring at the human in amazement. "The electromagnetic signatures suggested that your technology had been inactive for centuries." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "I can see how you might reach that conclusion. This particular area has been designated as a historical preserve. We maintain it exactly as it was during the early industrial period." "We?" Dr. Kesevar asked, her tentacles curling with excitement. "There are more of you?" "Oh yes," Dr. Chen replied casually. "Though most of us don't live on Earth anymore." The word Earth hit the research team like a physical blow. Not only was this human alive, but she was referring to other humans in the present tense. The implications were overwhelming. "How many?" Veltar asked quietly. "Humans? Current population? Across all settled worlds is approximately 400 billion, give or take a few million. The census data is updated every 5 years, so my numbers might be a bit old." The number was so large that several team members had to sit down. 400 billion meant that humans had not only survived their death world, but had spread far beyond it. "Settled worlds?" Throck rumbled. "How many worlds?" Dr. Chen thought for a moment. "Last count was around 8,000, but that includes colonies, research stations, and terraforming projects. If you only count fully established worlds with populations over 10 million, it's closer to 3,000. The silence that followed was deafening. Every member of the archaeological team was trying to process what they had just heard. In all their studies of Deathworld civilizations, they had never encountered one that had not only survived, but had spread across thousands of worlds. "I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding here," Dr. Chen said gently. "You've been studying extinct Deathworld civilizations, haven't you? And you assumed we were another one." Veltar nodded slowly, still struggling to accept what he was hearing. "That's actually quite flattering," Dr. Chen continued. "But I'm afraid you've made an error. Humans didn't go extinct. We left." She gestured toward the artifacts the team had been carefully cataloging. "These sites are preserved as museums and research facilities. We like to remember where we came from." "But the hostility of this world," Dr. Kesevar said weakly. "The radiation, the atmosphere, the gravity. How did your species survive long enough to develop interstellar travel?" Dr. Chen's smile became broader. Survive. Doctor, this world didn't almost kill us, it made us what we are. The archaeological team exchanged glances, each trying to understand what they had stumbled into. They had come here expecting to catalog another extinct civilization. Instead, they had discovered something far more significant, a Deathworld species that had actually succeeded. Dr. Chen accepted the invitation to join the archaeological team for their evening meal. She sat comfortably on a simple camp chair while the alien researchers gathered around her, each struggling to understand the magnitude of their discovery. I have to ask, Dr. Veltar said carefully, if humans are still alive and have spread to thousands of worlds, why did our scans show no signs of current civilization? Dr. Chen sipped from a cup of water that would have been toxic to most galactic species. Because you weren't looking for us. You were looking for the electromagnetic signatures of a planet-bound civilization. Most of our industrial activity moved off-world centuries ago. She gestured toward the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible. Earth is carefully managed now. We keep the population low, preserve historical sites, and maintain the ecosystem. It's more like a garden than an industrial world. Nixa leaned forward, her large eyes reflecting the campfire light. But how did you survive the early period? Every other Deathworld species we've studied was destroyed by their environment or by their own violence. We almost were, Dr. Chen admitted. Many times. We had wars that nearly wiped us out, climate changes that killed billions, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, plagues, you name it, we survived it. But how? Dr. Kesevar asked, her tentacles writhing with curiosity. What made humans different? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment, looking into the fire. I think it was because we learned early that the universe was trying to kill us. Other species might develop on peaceful worlds where cooperation and gentleness are survival traits. We developed on a world where stubbornness and adaptability were the difference between life and death. Throck shifted his massive frame. Your species is naturally aggressive? Not aggressive exactly, persistent. When something knocks us down, we get back up. When something tries to kill us, we figure out how to kill it first. When our environment becomes hostile, we either adapt or we change the environment. She pointed to the artifacts the team had been studying. Every tool you found, every piece of technology, represents a problem that tried to kill us and failed. We made fire because the cold would have killed us. We made weapons because predators would have killed us. We made medicine because disease would have killed us. We made machines because the work would have killed us. Dr. Veltar made notes as she spoke. But surely there must have been times when your species almost gave up. Oh, absolutely. We came close to extinction dozens of times. But here's the thing about humans. We're too stubborn to stay extinct. Every time we got knocked down to just a few thousand survivors, those survivors would rebuild. They'd learn from whatever disaster had almost killed them, and they'd make sure it couldn't happen again. Nixa looked puzzled. But the other Deathworld species we've studied were also adaptable. They also developed amazing technologies. What made humans different? Dr. Chen considered the question. I think the key difference is that we never stopped moving. Most species develop to a certain point and then try to maintain stability. Humans never did that. We always assumed that the next disaster was coming, so we always kept preparing for it. By spreading to other worlds? Dr. Kesevar asked. Eventually, yes. But first by spreading across Earth. We colonized every continent, every climate zone, every environment that could support life and many that couldn't. By the time we developed space travel, we already had thousands of years of experience at adapting to new environments. She gestured toward their camp. You're wearing environmental suits because this atmosphere is toxic to you. To me, this is just home. You need artificial gravity compensation because this world's gravity is too strong. I grew up in this gravity. You need radiation shielding because of the solar radiation. My ancestors evolved under this sun. The implications were staggering. Dr. Veltar had spent his career studying species that had been defeated by their environments, but humans had been shaped by theirs in a completely different way. So when you finally developed interstellar travel, he said slowly, you were already prepared for the challenges of space colonization. More than prepared, Dr. Chen replied. We were eager for it. Earth taught us that staying in one place was dangerous. The safest strategy was to spread out as far as possible. Throck rumbled thoughtfully. Your species treats the entire galaxy like other species treat a single world. Exactly. And every new world we settle teaches us something new about survival. Desert worlds, ice worlds, high-gravity worlds, low-gravity worlds. Worlds with toxic atmospheres. We've learned to adapt to all of them. Dr. Kessevar's tentacles were practically vibrating with excitement. But what about the other species? How do you interact with other galactic civilizations? Dr. Chen's expression became more serious. Carefully. Most galactic species evolved on relatively peaceful worlds. They're not prepared for the kind of thinking that comes naturally to humans. We've learned to be diplomatic about our capabilities. And what do you mean? Veltar asked. Well, for example, most species see conflict as something to be avoided at all costs. Humans see conflict as information about how to solve problems. Most species see disasters as tragedies. Humans see disasters as learning opportunities. Most species see hostile environments as barriers. Humans see hostile environments as challenges. She paused to let this sink in. These differences in perspective can be unsettling to other species. The research team sat in silence, each contemplating what they had learned. Every assumption they had made about Deathworld civilizations was being overturned. Humans hadn't been defeated by their hostile environment. They had been forged by it into something unprecedented in galactic history. Dr. Chen, Veltar said finally, would it be possible for us to see some evidence of current human civilization? Our expedition report will be difficult to believe without proof. Dr. Chen smiled. Of course. Tomorrow I'll take you to the local monitoring station. It's not much to look at, but it should give you a better understanding of how we manage Earth these days. She stood up and stretched. I should head back tonight. I have some reports to file about your arrival. Standard procedure when we have visitors. Reports to whom? Nixa asked. Earth Administration. They'll want to know that we've made contact with galactic archaeologists. It's not every day that someone comes here looking for our bones while we're still using them. As Dr. Chen prepared to leave, Dr. Veltar felt compelled to ask one more question. How long have humans known about other galactic civilizations? Dr. Chen paused at the edge of the firelight. Officially? About 300 years. Unofficially, we've been watching and learning for much longer. She stepped into the darkness beyond their camp. Sleep well, Doctor. Tomorrow, you're going to learn just how wrong your theories about Deathworld civilizations really are. The next morning brought clear skies and a warm breeze that carried the sense of growing things. Dr. Chen arrived at the archaeological camp just as the team was finishing their morning meal preparations. She moved with the easy confidence of someone completely at home in an environment that required the aliens to wear full protective gear. Ready for that tour? She asked cheerfully. Dr. Veltar nodded, though he felt nervous about leaving the safety of their established camp. Where exactly are we going? The nearest monitoring station is about 5 kilometers north. It's a pleasant walk, and I think you'll find it educational. As they traveled, Dr. Chen pointed out features of the landscape that the archaeological team had missed. What they had assumed were natural formations were actually carefully maintained historical sites. What they had thought were random ruins were parts of a vast network of preserved settlements. This entire region is managed as a living museum, she explained as they walked, along a path that seemed to be made of the same materials as the ancient roads they had been studying. We maintain it exactly as it was during the early industrial period, complete with working examples of period technology. Dr. Kessevar's tentacles moved nervously as she walked. The gravity and atmosphere that were natural to Dr. Chen required constant effort for the galactic species to endure. How do you maintain all of this without visible infrastructure? Most of our technology is underground or in orbit, Dr. Chen replied. We learned long ago that the best way to preserve natural environments is to keep industrial activity invisible. They crested a small hill, and Dr. Veltar gasped at what he saw below. What had appeared to be an empty valley from their aerial scans was actually a carefully tended landscape, dotted with structures that seemed to grow from the earth itself. Camouflaged construction, Dr. Chen explained. We've had centuries to perfect the art of building things that don't disturb the visual environment. She led them to what looked like a natural boulder formation. As they approached, a section of rock slid aside to reveal an entrance that was clearly artificial, but designed to be invisible from any distance. Welcome to Earth Monitoring Station 73, Dr. Chen said as they entered. The interior was stunning. The walls were lined with displays showing data streams from across the planet. Weather patterns, geological activity, biological diversity, and dozens of other measurements flowed continuously across screens that seemed to be made of light itself. Impressive, Throck rumbled. examining the technology with professional interest. How many of these stations are there? About 12,000, Dr. Chen replied casually. We monitor everything that happens on Earth: temperature, humidity, soil composition, animal migration patterns, plant growth cycles, atmospheric chemistry. Every aspect of the planetary ecosystem is tracked in real time. Nixa stared at the displays in amazement. The data processing requirements must be enormous. Not really by our current standards. This is actually fairly simple technology. Most of our advanced systems are dedicated to managing our off-world colonies. Dr. Chen led them to a central console, where a three-dimensional image of Earth rotated slowly. Different colors showed different types of data, and the level of detail was extraordinary. This is how we maintain Earth as a historical preserve, she said. We can predict weather patterns months in advance, track the movement of every large animal species, and maintain the ecosystem exactly as we want it. Dr. Veltar studied the display with growing amazement. The computational power required for this level of environmental management is significant, Dr. Chen agreed. But remember, we're doing this for 8,000 worlds simultaneously. Earth is actually one of our simpler projects because we know it so well. She touched a control, and the display changed to show energy flows around the planet. We generate more power than the entire planet uses, but most of it is transmitted directly to our off-world colonies. Earth itself runs on about 1% of what we produce. Where does the energy come from? Dr. Kessiver asked. Fusion, mostly. Some solar collection from orbital platforms. We've been energy positive for over 4 centuries. The implications were staggering. Dr. Veltar had studied dozens of Deathworld civilizations, and all of them had eventually been defeated by resource limitations or environmental degradation. But humans had solved these problems so completely that they were actually exporting energy to other worlds. Dr. Chen, he said carefully, how far have humans spread? She touched another control, and the display changed to show a map of local galactic space. Thousands of points of light marked human settlements connected by lines that showed trade routes and communication networks. This shows our local region, she said. We have settlements within about 200 light-years of Earth, but our exploration fleets have gone much farther. How much farther? Nixa asked in a small voice. Current estimates suggest our most distant colonies are about 1,500 light-years from Earth, though some of our exploration ships have gone beyond the galactic rim. The archaeological team stared at the display in stunned silence. The scale of human expansion was beyond anything they had imagined possible for a single species. But surely you must have encountered resistance from other galactic civilizations, Throck said. Territory disputes, resource conflicts. Dr. Chen looked puzzled. Why would there be conflicts? Space is big enough for everyone. When we encounter other species, we usually just trade with them or help them if they need assistance. Help them? Dr. Veltar asked. Well, yes. Most galactic species are limited to their home systems or maybe a few nearby colonies. They don't have the technology or the experience for large-scale space colonization. When they run into problems, environmental disasters, resource shortages, hostile neighbors, they often ask for our help. She touched the control again, and the display showed different colors for different types of human settlements. The blue dots are pure human colonies. The green ones are joint settlements with other species. The yellow ones are places where we're providing technical assistance to other civilizations. Technical assistance? Dr. Kessivar asked. Terraforming mostly. Environmental management. Disaster relief. Most species don't know how to make hostile worlds livable, but for us it's routine. We've been doing it for so long that we've developed standard procedures for almost any type of planetary environment. Dr. Veltar felt his understanding of galactic civilization shifting fundamentally. So humans are not just successful Deathworld survivors. You've become a major galactic power. I suppose that's one way to look at it, Dr. Chen said thoughtfully, though we don't really think of ourselves as a power in the traditional sense. We're more like galactic maintenance workers. We go where we're needed and fix things that are broken. She gestured toward the displays around them. The same skills that let us survive on Earth let us help other species survive on their worlds. When you've learned to live on a planet that's actively trying to kill you, helping someone manage a minor climate crisis is relatively simple. Nixa looked at the star map with its thousands of human settlements. How do you coordinate all of this? The logistics alone must be incredibly complex. Oh, they are, Dr. Chen agreed. But remember, We've been practicing coordination and logistics for thousands of years. When your homeworld regularly tries to kill you with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and asteroid impacts, you learn to plan for contingencies. She smiled at the expressions on the aliens' faces. I think the key insight is that what other species see as impossible challenges, humans see as normal Tuesday problems. We've been adapting to hostile environments for so long that we've forgotten it's supposed to be difficult. The tour continued for several more hours. But Dr. Veltar found it increasingly difficult to process what he was seeing. Every assumption about Deathworld civilizations, every theory about the limits of biological adaptation, every principle of galactic sociology was being overturned. As they prepared to return to the archaeological camp, Dr. Chen made one final observation that would haunt the research team for years to come. You know, Doctor, I've been thinking about your research into extinct Deathworld civilizations. I think you might be studying the wrong species. What do you mean? He asked. Well, you've been looking at species that were defeated by their environments. But what if the real question isn't how Deathworlds kill their inhabitants? What if the question is what happens when the inhabitants refuse to be killed? The final day of the archaeological expedition arrived with an unexpected development. Dr. Chen had returned to their camp with what she called some additional materials that might help them understand the scope of human civilization. I've received permission to show you something that isn't normally shared with off-world visitors, she said as she set up a portable device that looked deceptively simple. My supervisors thought it might help you write a more accurate report. The device projected a three-dimensional star map that filled the entire space above their camp. Dr. Veltar and his team found themselves standing inside a representation of their local galactic region, surrounded by millions of stars. This is real-time data from our navigation network, Dr. Chen explained. It shows current human activity across known space. The display was overwhelming. Thousands upon thousands of points of light indicated human settlements, ships, and installations. Trade routes connected distant systems in a web that stretched across vast reaches of space. Mobile fleets moved between stars in patterns that suggested coordination on a galactic scale. How many ships? Thruk asked in a voice that was barely above a whisper. Active vessels? About 40 million, give or take. That includes everything from single-person exploration craft to colony ships carrying millions of passengers. Dr. Kesevar's tentacles had gone completely still. 40 million ships? We've been building them for a long time, Dr. Chen said simply. And when you're spread across 8,000 worlds, you need a lot of transportation. Dr. Veltar walked through the holographic display, watching the movement patterns of human civilization. This is impossible, he murmured. No single species could coordinate activities on this scale. Oh, we don't coordinate it, Dr. Chen replied. That's the beauty of it. Most of these activities are completely independent. Individual humans, families, corporations, research groups, and local governments all making their own decisions about where to go and what to do. She pointed to a cluster of moving dots near the galactic rim. That's probably an exploration fleet looking for new worlds to study. They might be gone for decades, completely out of communication with the rest of human space. She indicated another area where the density of human settlements was particularly high. That's the manufacturing region. Dozens of worlds dedicated to producing everything from farming equipment to starships. But how do you maintain order? Nixa asked. How do you prevent conflicts between so many independent groups? Dr. Chen considered the question. The same way we prevented conflicts on Earth, by making sure there's enough space and resources for everyone. When someone doesn't like their neighbors, they can always move a few light years away and start fresh. She gestured toward the edge of the display. The galaxy is incredibly big. We've been expanding for centuries, and we've barely explored 1% of it. There's room for billions of human settlements without anyone getting in anyone else's way. The implications were staggering. Dr. Veltar had spent his career studying civilizations that had been constrained by the limits of their home worlds, but humans had simply ignored those limits and kept expanding until constraints became irrelevant. Dr. Chen, he said slowly, what you're describing isn't just a successful civilization. It's a fundamental transformation of how intelligence relates to the physical universe. Is it? She asked. I suppose it might look that way from the outside. But to us, it's just what we do. We see a problem, we solve it. We see an opportunity, we take it. We see empty space, we fill it. She touched a control and the display changed to show the historical expansion of human civilization. The progression was shown as a series of expanding shells, each representing a different century of growth. We started with Earth, she said, as the first shell appeared, then the solar system, then nearby stars, then entire regions of space. Each expansion taught us how to expand faster and more efficiently. The pattern was clear and relentless. Human civilization had grown exponentially, with each generation building on the achievements of the previous one. There had been setbacks and failures, but the overall trajectory was unmistakably upward. But surely there must be limits, Dr. Kesvar said. Resources, energy, population, we haven't found any yet, Dr. Chen replied. Every time we think we're approaching a limit, someone figures out a way around it. When we started running out of habitable worlds, we learned to terraform hostile ones. When we needed more energy, we built bigger fusion reactors. When we needed more resources, we learned to mine asteroids and gas giants. She paused the display on a view that showed the current extent of human space. The universe is very large, Doctor. Large enough that we might never run out of places to expand into. Dr. Veltar stared at the display, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. You're describing a species that has essentially transcended the normal limitations of biological civilization. Have we? Dr. Chen asked. We're still human. We still have the same basic needs and desires that we've always had. We just have better tools for satisfying them. She gestured toward the archaeological site where they had spent the past several days. The humans who built these tools and structures thousands of years ago weren't fundamentally different from humans today. They just had smaller problems to solve. The observation was profound. The archaeological team had been studying the artifacts of early human civilization, marveling at their ingenuity and resilience. But those same qualities, applied on a galactic scale, had produced something unprecedented in known history. Dr. Chen, Throck rumbled. What happens when humans encounter species that are less cooperative than the ones you've helped so far? The question hung in the air for a moment. Dr. Chen's expression became more serious. We hope that doesn't happen very often, she said finally. But when it does, we deal with it the same way we've always dealt with threats, which is, we survive, and we make sure the threat doesn't survive long enough to threaten anyone else. The casual way she said it was somehow more chilling than any dramatic declaration would have been. Dr. Veltar suddenly understood that they weren't just looking at a successful civilization, they were looking at an apex predator species that had learned to hunt on a galactic scale. I think, Dr. Chen said quietly. This is what you were looking for when you came here to study ancient Deathworlds. You wanted to understand what makes a species strong enough to survive in a hostile universe. She gestured toward the holographic display that surrounded them. The answer is that survival isn't enough. A species that only learns to survive will eventually be defeated by something stronger. But a species that learns to thrive in hostility, to grow stronger from adversity, to turn every challenge into an opportunity, that species becomes something the universe has never seen before. Dr. Veltar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planetary environment. And what is that? Dr. Chen smiled, but there was something ancient and terrible in her expression. The new Deathworld, Doctor. You're standing in it. The archaeological team looked around at the peaceful landscape, the preserved historical sites, the carefully maintained ecosystem. It looked exactly like what it was, a garden world protected and cherished by its inhabitants. But now they understood the truth. Earth wasn't just the cradle of human civilization. It was the heart of something vast and unstoppable that had spread across thousands of worlds and showed no signs of slowing down. The galaxy itself had become humanity's death world, and every species that encountered them had to adapt to that new reality. As the holographic display faded and Dr. Chen began packing her equipment, Dr. Veltar realized that their archaeological expedition had discovered something far more significant than another extinct civilization. They had discovered the future.